So, hi everybody, Happy New Year. I can't believe that it has been nearly 4 years since our first virtual class, and I look forward to many more in the future. This virtual platform continues to be a success for educating board members, managers, and other people who are interested in the community association industry. And it allows us to reach more people than ever. So thank you so much for participating and providing positive feedback to us on the fact that you're liking our classes. Welcome to our first class of our 2024 Virtual HOA Condo Academy in partnership with the cities of Avondale, Chandler, Glendale, Goodyear, Mesa, Peoria, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Surprise, and Tempe. My name is Beth Mulcahy, and I'm the founder and senior partner for the Mulcahy Law Firm in Phoenix, Arizona. First of all, Happy New Year. I wish you and your association a healthy and prosperous new year. I've represented over 1,000 HOAs and condominiums in the state of Arizona as their legal counsel for the past 27 years. Our firm, I also currently serve on my HOA board and have for many years. So I think I bring kind of a unique perspective to teaching these classes because not only have I been an attorney that's helped boards and associations navigate their legal problems for over a quarter of a century, I also have been on my board for a decade. And I also had a small stint as a disgruntled owner in my community when I was not on the board. So I think I really do understand a lot of different perspectives as I teach these classes and try to provide the most helpful information so that you are running successful associations. What's on today's agenda? Our first class for 2024. Today it's going to be 2024 Unwrapped. We're going to be exploring hot topics and headlines for the new year. We're going to cover a variety of topics today. It's going to include the new legislation for 2024 in Arizona, the Corporate Transparency Act, deferred maintenance and master planning in an association, how to disaster plan for your association, electric cars, social media pitfalls, recruiting board members if you can't find a board member for your community or you can't find people to run for the board. And then artificial intelligence, such as Chat GPT, and how that may affect our industry in the future. As always, there's going to be a free Q&A at the end of the class, so I encourage you to submit your questions via the chat box on Zoom or in the comments section on Facebook Live. Please be sure to limit yourself to one question per person and be as specific as possible, as there won't be an opportunity for a follow-up if I don't understand your question when I read it. Okay, before we get into today's class, I always like to know who's with us. So I like to have a poll. So for those of you who are with us on Zoom, the poll is going to be right there on your screen. For those of you who are with us on Facebook Live, if you could just put your answer in the comment section. So the first poll question is, in which city do you reside? So this would be where your association in Arizona is located. And so we have all the 10 different options. The second question is, please let us know your current role in your association. Are you a board member? Are you a community manager? Are you an interested homeowner? Or are you something other that might be just here to listen and fact find? Okay, while we're waiting for those poll results to come in, we're going to be talking a little bit about the new year, 2024. And a great thing to do at the beginning of each year is to think about what are your goals for your association. And I mentioned when I taught the first Friday class a couple of weeks ago that I was working on goals for my law firm, for my personal goals, and then also for the association board that I am currently, I'm actually on 2 boards right now, a master board and a sub board. And so really thinking as a board member here, if you're, a board member who's listening in on this class today, I want to share with you a worksheet that could help your board set some goals for 2024. I really suggest that all associations at the beginning of 2024 come up with at least 5 goals that you want to accomplish in 2024. Our firm has helped many associations develop, plan, and achieve goals over the past 27 years, and this is a very effective tool to get you started. So we're going to be sharing with you the worksheet on goal setting, and I hope that your board will pop that out in your January or February board meeting and start writing down some goals. what typically happens in associations is we get so busy being busy, dealing with maybe a homeowner that's upset about something, or dealing with violations, or just dealing with the day-to-day minutia of running an association, that we forget that we need to also be thinking big picture. We need to be doing some strategic planning for your association, and maybe tackling some deferred maintenance. We're going to be talking about deferred maintenance later today. Or maybe you have a very large project that needs to be accomplished in your association, like painting or re-roofing or redoing your pool. And setting up a goal worksheet for that and adding that to your goal worksheet is step one. And then we're going to be talking a little bit later today about master planning and how to accomplish those goals. So stay tuned, because we're going to help you get there this year in 2024. Okay, I'm going to be returning to our poll results now. Looks like we have our results back, and we have a great representation from almost every city in the Valley today. We have approximately 2% from Avondale, 8% from Chandler, 5% from Goodyear, 23% from Mesa, 8% from Peoria, 25% from Phoenix, 20% from Scottsdale, and 3% from Tempe. Now, to our friends in Surprise, I am so sorry. I forgot you today. So I apologize for that. I inadvertently left you off our poll. So if anybody's here from Surprise, I promise I'll make it up to you. We'll be sure to have you on our poll next month. Okay, the second question was, let us know your current role in the association. So we have 60% here today are board members, 9% are managers, 25% are interested homeowners, and the other are 5%. So we have really kind of a good representation. We don't normally have as many interested homeowners. So glad to see 25% here today listening to the classes. Okay, let's go back to our main topics for today. So, one of the first topics we're going to talk about is legislation in Arizona. So a couple of things that you need to be aware of. The 2024 legislature opened last week, and we already have over 700 bills that have been introduced, and we're already looking at the 10 bills that have been introduced that directly impact HOAs and condominiums. And we are monitoring the bills every month, or every week, during the time that the legislature is in session. And just like we've done in the past, we're going to talk about these bills in our classes throughout 2024. And we also will be posting on our website, mulcahylawfirm.com, a summary of the new bills. Since it's the beginning of the legislature and we're just kind of coordinating, putting all the bills together on a spreadsheet, probably by the end of this week, if I had to guess, by Friday or Monday, we'll have our first summary ready for you. But really, I did a quick look at the bills on Friday of last week that had been introduced so far. And, there were a couple surprises. But mostly it's just fine tuning and more regulation of associations that we're going to be required to comply with. So we'll keep you posted. The first time we're going to be talking about it officially is going to be at our next first Friday, the first Friday in February. So I hope you'll join us so we can have a live discussion on what's going on. Remember, one other thing on the legislation is that, at this time of the year, we kind of get an avalanche of bills. And, we don't want to overreact. What we do is we start monitoring the bills. And remember, this is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. So what happens is, over the next 6, 7, 8, 9 months, like it was last year, in 2023, the legislature fine tunes these bills and they combine some of the bills. Some of the bills never move out of committee, so they're dead. And so what we want to do is we want to just kind of give you a quick introduction to them, right now. And in February and March, and then in April, we start talking about the bills that really are moving and that are likely to become the law. So that's kind of our game plan this year in 2024 for new legislation. You have my word that we're going to be watching it every single week and posting on our website an update as to what's happening that pertains to HOAs and condos in the Arizona legislature. So check out our webpage. We will try to have that posted every Monday throughout the time that our legislature is open. And then again, our website is mulcahylawfirm.com, and we usually put a link right in the middle of the homepage of our webpage starting next Monday. Okay, we also had some legislation that was introduced in 2023 that impacted associations. I know that we talked about that extensively throughout 2023. There were 5 bills that were passed in 2023, and they went from adding a flag, the Betsy Ross flag, to the flags that owners can fly, to some special requirements for condominium insurance, to a bill on public roadways, and some important information about associations that are planned communities and that the streets are dedicated to the public, some actions that your association may or may not need to take in the coming years. Also, there were political activity bills, just like previous years, talking about, can somebody come into a gated community and distribute political materials or ask for signatures regarding political petitions that pertain to, non-HOA issues. There's a bill on that. And then there also is an important bill on board member removal that says that if the association doesn't act, if a condominium or planned community association doesn't act on a petition that's submitted for removal of a board member or multiple board members, and have the meeting to vote to remove the director within 30 days of receiving the petition, the entire board is removed. So that obviously was a very interesting and a bill that has serious consequences for associations. So we have a legislative summary that I'm going to be sharing with you. Please take a deeper look at that. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to reach out to our firm or me individually at bmulcahy@mulcahylawfirm.com. Okay, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about a federal law that we need to keep on our radar in 2024. So if you haven't heard about it, this is something that you definitely need to be thinking about, in 2024, because this bill that was, enacted by the United States Congress is called the Corporate Transparency Act. We're going to be sharing with you a summary that the Community Associations Institute prepared. It's kind of a deep dive on what the Corporate Transparency Act is and who it applies to. And so just a quick overview of the Corporate Transparency Act. It is a federal law that was passed in 2021. And the purpose of it was to track criminal or terrorist money laundering. And the goal of the Corporate Transparency Act was to safeguard national security and the United States financial system. So a question that we're getting is, does the CTA apply to HOAs and condos in Arizona? So the short answer is yes. Now, if you are set up a certain way, as some corporations, like some corporations that are like 501c, I think it's C5s. I've got to check my records on it, but there are some exceptions. You'll see it on CAI summary. They give a detailed summary. So if you're an association that doesn't pay taxes or doesn't file tax returns, it's possible that this may not apply to you. But 99% of our associations that are condos and planned communities in Arizona, this will apply to you, unfortunately. So short answer is yes, it's going to apply to you. However, I just want to state this little caveat that there are many industry professionals, myself included, throughout the U.S. who do not believe that the Corporate Transparency Act was intended to apply to HOAs and condominiums in Arizona or anywhere in the U.S. I've never heard of an association being involved in HOA or condo being involved in criminal or terrorist money laundering. And so I think the broad language of the Corporate Transparency Act, may have swept in, some charitable organizations and nonprofit organizations that, really they didn't intend to sweep in and require compliance with this law. So for now, the 10K or so HOAs and condos in Arizona must comply with the reporting requirements. And I'm going to talk about those in a second, that are in place under the Corporate Transparency Act. The good news is, although the law went into effect January 1st, 2024, you are not required to provide the reporting information under the Corporate Transparency Act until January 1st, 2025. So what we're doing and what we're advising our clients to do is keep the Corporate Transparency Act on your radar in 2024. And you can be sure, as can be, that we are going to be talking about it as a firm on these classes and with our clients about whether, there are any changes. Maybe the United States, Congress passes a bill that carves out some of these charitable nonprofit organizations, including condominiums and planned communities. Maybe that happens in 2024. And we aren't subject to it by 2025, January 1st, 2025. But I'm doubtful that that's going to happen. I think we are going to have to comply with it. But if something changes, I guarantee you we'll be talking about it here. So what are the requirements that we have to report under the Corporate Transparency Act if we're one of the HOAs or condos that this applies to? Which, again, it's going to be pretty much widespread compliance for HOAs and condos in Arizona. So by January 1st, 2025, we're going to have to fill out a form that the government has created, and there's a link to it that is now available online. And as we get closer to the compliance date of January 1st, 2025, we'll be sharing the link with you and helping you fill out the form. And so basically, what's the information that's on the form that has, helps us comply with the Corporate Transparency Act? So we have to provide the business name of the association, which is obviously easy, but this is kind of the harder part of it. We're going to have to provide the following information for board members and any individuals who have substantial control over the association. Maybe that's going to be the CEO of the management company, if you have one, or maybe the CFO, the corporate financial officer of the management company, if there is one. So all board members and any person who has substantial control over the association has to provide this information. So they have to provide their legal names, their birth dates, their home addresses, and their driver's license, state IDs, or passport numbers. And so it's kind of, a little bit intrusive, right? So we're serving on this volunteer board, and I'm going to have to comply with this. This is something I'm on two boards, so I'm giving this information to, the government on two different forms. So again, it's a little bit uncomfortable, right? But I was on a call last week with colleagues from around the country who do what we do, represent associations, and somebody on the call made a really good point. They said, listen, at least two other government organizations or entities have this information already. So I don't really understand what the big whoop is that we have to provide it. I think probably when that person said that, I kind of did have to agree. What I think the thing that bothers me about this law is that, no association is engaging in terrorist activities, right? And, it's an example of overreach by the federal government that's going to cost us money. And ultimately, who pays this? It's going to be passed through first to the board, and then the board's going to have to budget for this. And then it's going to get passed through to the homeowners, and the homeowners are ultimately going to have to pay more in assessments, and this is just a form. It probably shouldn't be that big of a deal, but there's going to be a charge, whether the management company charges for it or maybe your law firm charges to help you with it. And that's an extra charge that you didn't have, in 2024. Remember also that this is an ongoing reporting requirement. So any changes, corrections, or additions to the filing must occur within 30 days of any change. So if you have a board election and you have a new board, you're going to have to update the form with the new information of the board members. If you have a board member resign or you appoint a new board member to the board, you're going to have to update the information within 30 days. If you change your management company, or if maybe a key person at the management company who's considered somebody who has substantial control over the association changes, they change jobs or whatever, and you get a new person in, you're going to have to update that information. So it's an ongoing reporting requirement. And it's just something we want you to be aware of, that it's starting January 1st, 2025. So definitely this is something we got to keep an eye on in this year. Okay, a couple things. If you don't comply with this, not trying to scare you, but they do have civil penalties of $500 per day, and then criminal penalties of up to $10,000 and a maximum of 24 months in prison if you do not comply. Now, obviously, I think those are probably for the organizations that, are truly terrorist organizations or money laundering, but it's part of the law. It's what it says. So it's something that we have to take very seriously. And there's going to have to be something put in place to make sure that associations are fully complying with this by January 1st, 2025. Okay, our next topic is deferred maintenance. Honestly, I don't think that there is any association in Arizona that doesn't have some issues with deferred maintenance. So what are examples of deferred maintenance? Maybe you have a clubhouse and, the things are getting a little bit run down in the clubhouse. Maybe the paint is peeling or the roof is leaking, and people aren't using the clubhouse very often at your association. So it's just something that exists, but you just keep putting it off because it's going to be a big project and it's going to cost $100,000 to fix. And you just keep putting it off every year. Or maybe, you have your irrigation system at your association is malfunctioning frequently, and you have to go in and override it. And you're just kind of band-aiding it every month. And at some point, there's going to be a day that it's just going to break and you can't fix it, right? And there are so many examples of deferred maintenance in associations. And the problem with deferred maintenance is that over time, it really does start to affect property values. And over time, it does kind of create board member burnout because there are so many problems and there's not enough money frequently, and not, maybe even a desire or ability to get it done, because maybe you can't get the special assessment passed to pay for, the upgrades that are needed or the maintenance that's needed in the common areas. So it's frustrating. It's a frustrating issue, and a lot of associations are dealing with it. So what are some things to think about? A good place to start if you have deferred maintenance is, address it, right? Don't keep, sweeping it under the rug. So the first thing you could do to address it would be, create a maintenance backlog. So have a walkthrough of your property and start writing down what are the issues that, may need to be addressed that are deferred maintenance. So just creating a list, starts the process of, okay, here are some things that probably need to be addressed. If you have a management company, maybe your management company property manager can help you create that list, or maybe you bring in a third-party expert to help you with this process. Then the next thing you want to think about is, what's the scope of the problem? After you see the list, is this something where we have a lot of issues and we need to maybe bring in a master plan to help us get this done over a 5 or 10 year period? I know my association where I live is 50 years old. And right now we have a lot of deferred maintenance, and it's kind of a difficult situation because we don't have the majority votes on our board to aggressively attack this deferred maintenance. So it's kind of like we're in a waiting period where until we get the votes, we really can't do anything. And so, it just depends. After you look at that maintenance backlog, that list of things that need to be done, you should reach out to your trusted advisors, whether it's your reserve company or your attorney or your management company, and talk about it and say, like, okay, how serious is this issue? Is it something that we just have a couple of things that we can start planning in 2024 or the next few years and get it done? Or is this something where we need like a major overhaul? And we're looking at like maybe 5 to 10 to 15 million to, get this place back on track. If you're in the range of a $5 million, projects to get the deferred maintenance fixed, you really do need to bring in an expert. There are companies throughout the United States that help associations with what we call a master plan. And they just identify what are the things that need to be accomplished. And then they help you come up with a plan on, over the years, what would be a good plan to get it done. And they help you with the marketing on it to your owners. And it's really a good thing to do if you're an association that's in that situation. It does cost a little money to hire these companies, but it's money well spent in my experience. So after you create your maintenance backlog, then look at, is this like a small type of maintenance things that we can just start, planning out over the next year or 2 years? Or is this something that these are more serious issues? Like maybe it's $1 million, 5 million, 10 million and up. You may want to bring in a master plan company to help you. And if you need names for some referrals for those, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to give you names of any companies that we have worked with in the past with our clients and that we've had a good experience with. Just email me directly at bmulcahy@mulcahylawfirm.com and I can share those with you. Okay, then we got to talk about how are we going to pay for this, right? If we have a lot of deferred maintenance, you got to get the votes on the board to, move forward with it. And then B, how can we fund this? So maybe it's something that you're putting in your budget for the next year or this year. Maybe you have to do a special assessment. And if you're doing a special assessment, make sure you're reaching out to your trusted advisors of your management company and your attorney to make sure that you're doing it correctly. And getting the proper votes that you need from the homeowners. And if you may have to have a homeowner meeting to have them vote on it in person or by absentee ballot. And so determining, okay, first the board's got to approve moving forward on the deferred maintenance, then we've got to fund it. So how are we going to pay for it? And then kind of the next step is moving forward. One thing I want to mention on this is typically it's hard to tackle deferred maintenance. Usually there's some people that don't see deferred maintenance and they're saying, well, everything looks great here. Why do we need to, fix the peeling paint? Nobody's even noticing that. Well, so if you are moving forward with your capital improvement projects to fix some of these deferred maintenance issues, you want to make sure you're picking the right vendors, because if you pick a wrong vendor, it can be a very costly mistake. And so we're going to be sharing a bunch of cheat sheets on, some of the topics that I've been talking about here under this deferred maintenance, topic. And one of them is association bidding and contracting. So when you're selecting your vendors, take a look at that cheat sheet. If you're, doing a big project like painting or something that's going to cost over $100,000, you should definitely be looking at that cheat sheet to give you some recommendations. But just some, quick recommendations is make sure that you're hiring a vendor that's licensed, bonded, and insured. Make sure that obviously check with the Register of Contractors in Arizona, see if they have any complaints. That's always a bad sign when you see a contractor with, one or more complaints that haven't been resolved. And even if they have been resolved, it's a question you need to ask of them. Why do you have so many complaints with the Register of Contractors? And so, picking the right vendor is important because these projects are expensive. And if you pick the wrong vendor, like let's say you go with the lowest bidder and they're not licensed, and they're not bonded. If they screw it up, you're going to end up paying twice as much. So you would have been better off going with the licensed, bonded, reputable, check the references vendor who is going to come in and knock it out of the park and do a good job. A couple things on deferred maintenance I just want to mention kind of in closing would be reserve funds and doing reserve studies. So we have a great cheat sheet on this that we're going to be sharing with you on reserve funds as part of this deferred maintenance topic. But really what we're hearing from reserve companies, specialists in Arizona that are licensed to do reserve studies is that you really need to be doing them now every 3 years. Some of you may have noticed that the cost of some of these projects is going up exponentially. And that's due to inflation and other factors. But you may have a reserve study from 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but the numbers in that reserve study that they're saying that you should have in your reserve account, they're flawed because everything is costing so much more money. So kind of a good rule of thumb that we're hearing from reserve companies is you should have that reserve study updated about every 3 years, is a good suggestion. Lastly, if you're going through deferred maintenance projects and fixing things in your community, maybe even a large capital improvement project, be sure to communicate with your owners. You need a marketing plan. You need to market this to your owners, why it's necessary, why the inconvenience is, there's going to be an inconvenience. The pool may need to be shut while we're resurfacing it. And just communicating really well with them throughout the entire process, why it's needed, why we have to increase the assessments or levy a special assessment to pay for it or take out a loan maybe to pay for it. And then when there's the inconvenience of fixing it, making sure that you're telling everybody this is what we're doing and these are the days and we apologize, but this is necessary to make our community beautiful and keep it nice and keep our property values up. And so just having good communication with your owners throughout the process will be helpful. And, will limit the stress of having angry homeowners coming to your meetings, not understanding why something's happening. Last but not least, said this a couple times as we've been talking about deferred maintenance, please reach out to your trusted advisors on these large capital improvement projects. So your attorney, your management company, your reserve specialist, we are all here to help you. We're part of your team, and we want you to make good decisions as you're navigating these issues as a board member. So remember, we're here as a resource for you. We've been through this many times, and we've seen mistakes that associations have made. And we want to prevent those mistakes from happening to your association because they can be costly mistakes. Okay, let's talk about our next topic, hot topic for 2024, disaster planning. This is always kind of a scary topic to talk about with associations because nobody wants to think about, what if something really bad happens in our community, and plan for it because it's scary, frankly, right? And so we have a really great plan that was created by the Community Associations Institute. It's a national organization that provides free information to HOAs and condominiums throughout the United States. And so they have a wonderful plan that we want to share with you on potential disasters. And, we also have a cheat sheet on insurance because obviously how do we, handle disasters that may happen in your association? We're going to be working very closely with the association's insurance company to rebuild the association if anything, horrible should happen and there's a natural disaster, and this really could be anything in Arizona. It could be fires in northern Arizona. We've had associations that have had issues with that. Could be flooding. There are fires like in-home fires, not like wilderness fires. There's a lot of things that can happen, and we've seen it over the years, and you just want to make sure that you have a good relationship with your insurance agent so that if there is a problem, that when you call them, they answer and they don't put you into some 1-800 number and, wherever the person that's handling claims is, you want to have a personal relationship with your insurance agent. So good way to do that, invite them to a board meeting, ask them to appear by Zoom, introduce themselves the next time your policy's up for renewal. Ask them to look at your documents, make sure you have enough insurance pursuant to your documents, and also take a peek at our cheat sheet on insurance that our firm puts out there. We're sharing it with you now, but you also can find any of our cheat sheets on our website at mulcahylawfirm.com. Okay, so every association should have a thorough emergency preparedness strategy, and this helps as a detailed roadmap for association leaders and residents to collaborate in preparing for, responding to, and recovering from any disaster that may happen in your association. I really encourage you to look at CAI's plan for potential disasters. They ask you to start planning by doing the 5 W's. So who will be impacted and who's going to be the person that's going to respond? What disasters could happen in your community? Where do you go after the disaster if it's something where there needs to be relocation? When should we notify residents and staff? Why have we prioritized the key response tasks? Like, what are some things that would need to happen? And then how do we get educated and prepared to react if something does happen? So a good place to start is by looking at this potential disaster cheat sheet that the CAI puts out. I encourage you to take a look at that. It's a scary topic, but it's something that you definitely want to just have on your radar, and then have as a resource in case something should happen in the future. And take some time to plan. Maybe in 2024, think a little bit about what are some things that could happen and what are the plans that we would have to have in place. It's probably not going to be that difficult because we don't see a lot of natural disasters. Really, it's not something that is a regular thing in Arizona. I think probably the most important thing is having that relationship with your insurance agent and making sure that you're properly insured as a starting point. Okay, next topic we're going to talk about is electric vehicles. I put this on this list for 2024 because we're starting to see a lot of questions from boards and owners about electric vehicles. And owners are wanting charging stations and wanting to know why associations aren't providing this as part of, living in an association. And associations also need to think about, is this something that we want to provide? Can we afford to provide it? How can we do this economically? Is there a location in the community that, we could put this if we so want to do this? This is probably, what I would say more of a condo issue than a planned community issue, because in most planned communities, if an owner has an electrical vehicle, their electric vehicle, they will have a charging station in their own garage. But in like a townhome or a condo community, where there may not be a garage, it becomes something that sometimes the residents are more likely to ask for. Some large master plan communities in Arizona have this for their planned communities, like they have a charging station, but usually it's the ones that have, like over 2,000 homes, and they're newer. It's developed in the last 5 years or something like that. Okay, associations are probably going to be faced with this problem going forward, right? Because let's face it, electric cars are, likely going to be the future in our country, or at least a larger percentage of vehicles on the road will be electric vehicles. Several states have passed legislation addressing electric vehicles in communities, but Arizona has not. So you need to know that there's no law right now on the books that has been passed by a legislature requiring associations to have electric vehicle charging stations. CAI, like I said, the National Think Tank Community Associations Institute, they have some notes on this as a trending topic in our industry. And interestingly, CAI supports legislation that permits the association to enact reasonable rules and regulations concerning the cost, installation, maintenance, and removal of a charging station. And CAI also supports legislation or other public policies that incentivize associations to provide for electric vehicle charging, but also allows for the unique needs and the ability of each association to figure out what's best for them. So CAI has an interactive map that they put out, which states have passed laws addressing EVs in communities. We're going to be sharing that in the chat, but again, no laws in Arizona right now, but just kind of interesting trend to look at how many other states have laws that are, mandating electric charging stations in associations. So I think it's kind of a trend that we could see going forward. Also, there's a great blog that was put out there from CAI also on electric charge. Where will community homeowners plug in? And this discusses the right to charge laws, which have been enacted by several states, including Illinois and Florida. Interestingly, the Illinois governor signed a right to charge law in June 2023, requiring that all parking spots at new homes and multi-unit dwellings be wired so that they're ready for EV chargers to be installed. I'm pretty sure the developers are not happy about that in Illinois because that adds a cost to, the cost per home. And also that cost just gets passed right through to the homeowners in the purchase price. So something to think about. A couple things I just want to mention from a practical standpoint. If you're a condo that is dealing with these electric vehicle issues, a couple things issues that have come up and that I've seen over the past few years that I thought were really interesting. So number one, some condos invest in a pay to play, for lack of better words, EV charging station. And so they have a charging station that they put on the common areas in the condo, and people, if they want to charge it, whether they're residents, or vendors even, they have to swipe their credit card in order to charge. So it basically pays for itself. Something to think about if your association doesn't have the funding to purchase an EV charging station or EV charging, things to set up a station at your association. Another thing to think about is if you're a high rise and you have parking in your association, like let's say maybe the first 2 floors or the first 3 floors of your high rise are parking. There have been some issues raised that electric vehicles are significantly heavier than regular cars. And so if you're doing any sort of structural analysis of your building, which honestly, after, the building collapse in Florida a couple of years ago, if you're a high rise in Arizona right now, you really should be thinking about this issue, bringing in a structural engineer to look at your building to make sure everything's, in good order and that there aren't any safety issues. Ask the consultant when they come in, can we talk about electric vehicles? And if we had X number of electric vehicles in our parking, how would that affect the structural, the structure of our building? I have one association that we work with that we talked about this extensively, and we were very surprised to learn that, if a majority of the cars in the high rise were parking on a floor, that it could affect the structural stability of the building, which is something that, of course, was not on anybody's radar. And that came up as part of the engineering report that was, solicited after the Surfside building collapse in Florida. So just something to keep on your radar. If you're a high-rise association that's listening in here today, if you're doing any sort of structural analysis, bringing in engineering team to look at your building, that's something you should be asking. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about something a lot lighter, social media, another hot topic for 2024. So we have a great cheat sheet on this topic. It's called Technology and Community Associations. I do see problems with social media in associations, okay? And here's how it comes up. Maybe your association has a Facebook page, or maybe you're having a Nextdoor page for your community. And there's a lot of bickering, let's say, on these platforms. And maybe a board member is commenting on social media. And, sometimes it could be, just that's not right, or you don't have the facts right, or whatever, but there's bickering and fighting back and forth between whoever's on the social media platform and a board member. Please, board members should not ever be commenting on social media on behalf of the board. And frankly, if you are a board member, you shouldn't be commenting even in your individual capacity, because you will be perceived as being the board member and acting as you're talking, commenting as a representative of the board. So point number one, be really careful on social media. It's good in many ways, right? It's great getting the information out about things in your community on multiple platforms, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Nextdoor. All of these things are great tools for communication, but they also can go negative. And we want to be very careful that the board shouldn't be commenting on social media when things go negative. Now, if you are going to comment, the only thing that you really should say is, please come to the board meeting to discuss this with the board. We understand that you're upset about this issue. Please come to the board meeting so that we can talk about it. If you're seeing a lot of negativity on your social media, it might be a time for the board to have a town hall to talk through the issues so that this doesn't escalate into like a board removal petition or something like that. Boards should discuss internally the use of social media so that everybody is on the same page. It may be wise to create a social media policy for your boards to consider, and your code of conduct, if you have one for your boards, should address social media and not commenting on social media. We're going to be sharing with you an interesting article that we found on the use of social media by boards. I didn't write it. The founder of CAMS, Community Association Management Services, wrote this article, and he took a deep dive on the ins and outs of social media use by board members. And it's a really great article, so I'm sharing it with you because it provides valuable information on social media and some things that you may not have considered as a board or for your association. So social media is a double-edged sword. It's good in that provides information for owners. It's bad in that sometimes it can go negative and it can turn into, a lot of fighting. So you have to balance what's best for your community. I do think it balances out better for the communication, and I am in favor of using it. You just want to be careful that the board, how they handle different things that come up on social media, that we handle it in a professional manner, and we encourage people to come and hear directly from the source at a board meeting when they have questions or issues or are unhappy about something. Okay, the next topic we're going to be talking about is recruitment, how to find board members. This is always a hot topic, but I've been getting a lot of questions on this in the last quarter of 2023, so I added it to our list for today to discuss for 2024. So what do we do if we can't find anybody to serve on the board? So we have a great cheat sheet on annual meetings, and we have a little blurb in that that we're going to be sharing with you on, how to increase participation on the board, how to get board members. So here's some things that we will suggest to you. So first, the committees are a great place to recruit board members. If somebody has volunteered to serve on the architectural committee, or if somebody has volunteered to be on any other committee for your association, budgeting, social committee, welcome to the neighborhood committee. This is a great place to find people who might be interested in serving on the board. So ask them, give them a phone call and ask them to be on your board. A couple other ways you can ask for volunteers to be on the board is to send emails out to your community well in advance of your annual meetings, letting them know that you put it on emails, you can put it in social media too, that, hey, we're looking for board members. If you're interested, please, follow this procedure. Keep it positive on your message, remind them how rewarding it is to serve on the board and that it's not that big of a time commitment. Which those of us who are on the board know that at times that is not totally true. But overall, I have been on my board, like I said, for 14 years on and off over the past, since the year 2000. So I've had some time off and I've had some time on. And I would say really there were only about 1 or 2 years that were bad, right? The majority of the other years have been good. And honestly, the worst year ever was the year I was the president. So my heart goes out to every president who's listening in here today. You have a hard job, and people forget that the buck stops with you, and it's a very time-consuming job to be the president. So I get it. So if you're having trouble, make sure you're reaching out to me, because I really do understand how difficult it is to be president. I can give you some good advice and solutions on how to manage that year or years if you do it for multiple years. Okay, what do you do if you've done all these things? Like you've gone to committees, you've talked to people who come to your board meetings to see if they're interested and they're not. You've advertised and sent out emails, and you still can't get anybody to volunteer to be on the board. The last step is a letter from our firm. This is what we suggest to our clients that can't get anyone to run for the board. And I can tell you that I have never sent this letter where we didn't get board members to volunteer. So basically, the letter is scary. It says that, the association's board has contacted me because we have vacancies on our board that we are unable to fill. Nobody is willing to run for the board. And therefore, we have a situation now where we don't have a quorum of the board to conduct business. And the implication of this is that, there's going to be a receiver appointed to run the association because we don't have board members to do it, a quorum of board members to do it. And how that works is that we petition the court, the Superior Court, for a receiver. They appoint one. It's very expensive. I've seen receivers be appointed by court. It's $80,000 typically. If you have a larger association, maybe it's $40,000 if it's part-time. Receiver for a smaller association, and the judge just rules right then and there, okay, special assessment to everybody to pay for this. And when I explain this in the short letter that I send out, and I ask, this is our last call to ask, is anybody willing to run for the board? People step up. They don't want a receiver for a number of reasons. A, it's more expensive. B, it's definitely not something that is good for resales in your association, because it's going to have to be disclosed to any buyer, and it really could affect your property values. So that's kind of your last effort. If you're an association that's in that situation right now, reach out to our firm and we can show you the letter and help you, get the word out to your community that this is unfortunately what's going to happen if we can't get a quorum of board members to run association business. Okay, a couple more topics. One topic that I want to just talk about quickly that I didn't put on the agenda for today, but I think is important to discuss is water in Arizona. We spent some time in other classes talking about the fact that the Arizona Department of Water Resources is in a management plan right now for, limiting water for certain associations. And you will be receiving a letter if your association is one of those associations that has a lot of turf, and they will be asking you to comply with the water restrictions that the state is putting in place. If you have that occurring in your association, like you received a letter from the state of Arizona on this, there are resources for you to help you manage this, issue. There are companies that come in and help you determine how to reduce the amount of turf that you have so that you can comply with the water restrictions. There are going to be further restrictions down the road. So this is something for associations that have a large amount of turf. You may want to reach out to our firm to get some advice on how you can pre-plan for that. I've attended a couple seminars where there are companies in Arizona who this is what they do. They advise, large landowners how to comply with the new restrictions that are being put in place by the state of Arizona. So we can also point you in the direction of those entities to help you manage the issue as the state continues to regulate the amount of water usage. And this really is only going to apply to the associations that have a large amount of turf. Okay, next and last topic we're going to be talking about is artificial intelligence. And so we're hearing a lot about this on the news. How might this impact associations in 2024? So something that you might be hearing about a lot is this Chat GPT. I encourage you to Google it and find out more about artificial intelligence, but how could this impact our associations, right? HOAs and condos in Arizona. So what is AI and how is it going to impact our industry? So simply put, AI, artificial intelligence, enables machines to mimic certain aspects of human intelligence, such as problem solving, learning from experience, and adapting to different situations. So it's a technology that aims to make machines smart and then allows them to analyze data, understand anything that's coming to them in the form of a question, and then perform tasks in a way that simulates a human on the other side. So in preparing for this presentation today, we came across a couple of articles on artificial intelligence and how it may help management companies by improving productivity and efficiency down the road. And so some ideas that we saw in these articles were that artificial intelligence could help with communication to members. So let's say that a member calls in with a problem. They could have artificial intelligence responding immediately to the owner. So maybe, something that I hear at annual meetings often is, I called the management company and they didn't call me back, or I called the management company and they didn't call me back for a week. Having this artificial intelligence capability for the management company could, involve better communication to the owners when there's a problem. Some other areas it could help predict maintenance schedules. It also could help with replacement of different, appliances, et cetera, within an association. So it's just something to keep on your radar for 2024. It was a buzzword for sure in 2023. And now we're kind of all trying to, react to how is this going to impact our industry and how is it going to be helpful? There are some scary parts of artificial intelligence, right? Like, voices can be recreated through artificial intelligence, and it could be used, to, potentially harm the association in some way. So, it's scary. Of course, it's scary like anything, new technology that we don't understand. So trying to keep our finger on it and understand how it may help us, and then also making sure that we have safeguards in place as an association so that artificial intelligence can't be used in any way to harm the association. And so it's a new topic. We're going to be looking into this more in 2024 and likely bringing these issues up in the classes that we teach. If we hear of anything in our industry that might be helpful, or that's something you need to keep an eye on to make sure that you protect your association. Okay, one thing that comes up with AI is it going to lead to people losing their jobs, right? So are you not going to have a management company anymore? How is that going to impact boards? Would a board even need to be in place anymore? Will the board be artificial intelligence? I doubt it, in the next decade that we're going to see anything like that, but it's kind of a fun thing to think about. Because that obviously could decrease the costs for an association, which should be helpful for an association, but it also would take away the personal touch that I think is really important in running an effective community. So we'll be talking about this for sure in the coming year and in future years. Okay, so we kind of got through all of our hot topics for 2024. I did it in 57 minutes. I can't believe it. Great start to the new year. I'm really happy to announce today that we had over 155 attendees today on Zoom and many more on Facebook. Like, that's got to be a record for this year and last year. So happy that we had such a great turnout today. I think it was a good topic because we covered a lot of different things and we kind of did some planning for 2024. So thank you so much to everybody for being here today. I'd also like to thank the different cities that we partner with to teach these virtual HOA Condominium Academy classes. Again, I'd like to thank Avondale, Chandler, Glendale, Goodyear, Peoria, Mesa, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Surprise, and Tempe for allowing me the ability to partner with your cities and the neighborhood services departments in your cities to provide free information to homeowners, board members, and managers so that everybody is aware of what's going on in our industry and has a place that they can go to for free to ask questions and have them answered. Just some closing remarks. Our next First Friday event, don't forget that, is going to also be February 2nd, first Friday of the month, starts at 9 a.m. And lastly, please consider leaving a Google review for these classes or for our law firm if you've worked with us directly before. We are sharing a link in the chat on how to leave a review. We are always happy to get feedback from our valued customers and for those who are attending these classes so that we can continue to improve our service. Also, in order to keep these classes going, it's important that I provide the different cities that we work with evidence that these classes are valuable and that it's a resource that you like, because every city evaluates whether or not these classes are something they want to continue over time. And having the direct evidence through a Google review that you like these classes and you would like to continue seeing them in 2024 helps me because I provide that feedback to the cities. So please consider doing that. We would really appreciate it. And again, the Google review link is right there on the information that's on Zoom or on Facebook Live. So thanks again, everybody. I hope you have a great 2024 for your associations. Work on those goals this month for your associations. And I look forward to seeing you at any upcoming classes in person in January or virtually in February. So thanks for being here today and have a great day. Take care.